the experience of being Japanese in this country is indelibly linked to the events of World War II. So it's very important for us to be gathered here in this time, especially in this moment when forces are conspiring to erase the history that occurred and to really deny the truth of the history. It's more important than ever that we can come together in a space like this and really celebrate and reclaim the stories of our community. Because as much tragedy as there was, the wartime incarceration is also a story of resilience. It's a story of resistance, and it's a story that has made our community who we are today. So I'll have a few other welcoming remarks, but at this point, I'd like to introduce a couple of our honored guests who will be giving welcoming remarks here from the local Texas elected officials. Our first guest is Judge Peter Sakai from Bexar County. When Peter's grandparents immigrated to the United States from Japan, they could have never imagined all the good that he would accomplish. His grandparents were humble farmers when they left Japan. His maternal grandparents immigrated to South Texas, where they became one of the earliest Japanese in the Rio Grande Valley, and are featured in the Institute of Texan Cultures. His father's family immigrated to join the farming community in the Imperial Valley of California. They were honest and hardworking citizens. Peter's dad, Pete, a high school student in California during the outbreak of World War II, and the entire family were victims of Executive Order 9066, the Japanese internment camps. He often told Peter about his experiences growing up and going to high school in these camps. So many people wrongly lost their property, their businesses, and their homes because of this abhorrent violation of their civil rights. The stories Pete told Peter have compelled him to defend the Constitution and the rule of law, so that no one else would have to go through what his family and so many other Asian Americans had to endure. Driven by his family and his passion for justice, Peter graduated from the prestigious University of Texas in 1976 with a bachelor's degree and the University of Texas School of Law in 1979. Please welcome Judge Peter Sakai.
Good morning. Oh, we're in San Antonio. Good morning. There we go. All right, just got to wait, got to get everybody up here. What an honor for me to be here. I have been here before. I'm very familiar with the Crystal City pilgrimage and the experiences of the internment camp at Crystal City. As you heard, I have a personal involvement through my father and my paternal grandparents. But first, let me welcome all of you to Bexar County, San Antonio, Texas. I want to recognize our mayor, Gina Ortiz-Jones, who will speak after me, and she'll give you the welcoming remark. Typically, when I do this open, I say, hey, thank you for coming. Spend all your money on the hotel and on the restaurants, and drink a little extra drinks, because that goes to the alcohol tax. That way I can keep my budget balanced. But no, not today. Not today. And that's because this is very special. So first, let me just say, Rob Busher, where you at? Where'd you go? Thank you for being the master of ceremonies. Didn't realize you had a experience, and you also are a Japanese American. So I also want to recognize Gina Ortiz-Jones from the city of San Antonio. Can we give her a round of applause? And I'm just delighted to meet for the first time, although we apparently know each other, Mayor Jose Angel Cerda, the Councilwoman Cecilia Ross, and Mayor Pro Tem Andrew Marquez from the city of Crystal City. And Mayor, although this is the first time we've met, Mayor, our paths kind of have crossed because you're a social worker and do much great work in your community, helping to protect children and empower families. And I was a children's court for 26 years and did that before I became the county judge here in Bexar County. Okay, a little bit, okay. Also note, I saw Larry Oda from the JACL, the Japanese American Citizen League. Where you at, Larry? Please stand and be recognized. You know, the JACL has been there at the forefront of the fight for civil rights for Japanese Americans, and also has been instrumental in having that corrected in history, right, Larry, to have the federal government finally issue a formal apology, reparations. And I understand that is an issue, especially for the Japanese Peruvians. And I want to put on record that I believe and I am committed to seek reparations for you too. And so, Larry, that's obviously something that needs to continue. Manuel Garza, Southwest Voter Research, you're the one that kind of locally helps put this together. Manuel, stand to be recognized. If there's anybody in this community that has advanced the rights of the Mexicanos, the Chicanos here, that's Manuel Garza. And I think, as I know, in being a student of history, how those paths of history have intersected and have really gone on parallel course in regards to the common experiences of injustice, racism, and discrimination. I have to recognize some of the members here. First and foremost, we have the organizers. Well, we have obviously Victor Uno, Gabriela Nakashima, Carissa Tom. Please stand and be recognized for continuing to put this pilgrimage together. And I'm just delighted and just overwhelmed that I have again met Hiroshi Shimizu and also Kazumu Naganuma, the survivors of the Crystal City camp. Well, I want to recognize all of you, and I'm really, really excited, thrilled to see the young people in the room, and that's because you're going to have to continue the legacy, the stories, to make sure history is always correctly portrayed. Because as you heard, we have forces in this country now that want to whitewash the history, and we cannot allow this legacy and this history to be erased. So young people, I want y'all to be standing because I want to see how many we have. Young people, children. Look, anybody younger than me is younger, so stand and be recognized because they're here. They're participating. There you go. Come on now. Come on, guys. All right. All right, then the rest of y'all are old like me, I guess. This is a special moment. I feel the spirit of my father. I feel the spirit of my grandparents, especially as a Japanese American. The reason being, as you heard, they were too also part of that experience. They were in Poston, Arizona, internment camp, incarcerated there. And so for this morning, if you allow me, is to give great dignity and respect to my ancestors for what they had to go through. As you heard, my grandparents came over nearly 100 years ago to settle in America, to establish their families, to seek their fame and fortune, to establish a new life from Japan. But may I remind you, as they came forward, they encountered much of what's happening today. They were told, go back home, go back where you came from. They were not allowed to purchase land in their names, my grandparents. They were excluded. And we know that there were exclusion acts saying you can't come to the America no more. And they were subject to racism, discrimination. They were told, yeah, especially at the outbreak of World War II, no, you can't come into these establishments. So those are the stories And we can talk about the stories of the Japanese Peruvians, which is even a more atrocious experience of being thrown out of the country and basically never and practically denied back, and then never really being formally accepted. And the reason why I bring that up today is because that's why, in giving dignity and respect to my family, it is my desire and hope that this legacy, the positive energy in this room to take a pilgrimage from San Antonio to Crystal City, although I know you're not going to walk every step, is a very significant recognition and respect, not only to those that were incarcerated at Crystal City. I understand we have German Americans, Italian Americans that are also part of this. And as we give the dignity and respect, let us carry on the fight for justice, to eliminate racism, discrimination, to push back and to speak out and speak up. Because as we are coming through these tough times, there is such optimism and hope for me that we're going to get through this. My grandparents did. My dad did. Never, I believe, would they ever believe that me, Peter Sakai, would be a county judge of Bexar County, an elected position. And so that's what is so beautiful and hopeful about America. It is still a land of opportunity. We must embrace those who want to come to our country to work hard, establish their families, and to be part of the American dream. So in essence, all of you today are carrying on the fight that our forefathers and our grandparents and our parents, I myself, along with you, and now with the young people, although you didn't acknowledge yourself, the young people and the children carry on. We will get through this, and we will prevail. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Judge Sakai. I think it was a very important remark that you made, including our families, our ancestors in this moment. And I think pilgrimage in general is a great time to invoke the spirits of our ancestors. It's through their strength that we can have the resolve to do the work that we need to do in these difficult times. But it's also a moment of celebration. And I think as we do in our Japanese American and Japanese cultures, celebrate with the spirits of our ancestors, we'll be doing some Bon Odori a little bit later this evening at the Perukai. So that'll be a celebratory way to also remember the spirits and bring them here with us as we embark on our pilgrimage tomorrow. So at this point, I would like to introduce our second honored guest, San Antonio Mayor Gina Ortiz-Jones. The Honorable Gina Ortiz-Jones was sworn into office as San Antonio's 69th mayor on June 18, 2025. Jones, a first-generation American raised by a single mother in San Antonio, was taught early on about the importance of service by her family. She graduated from John Jay High School and earned a 4-year Air Force ROTC scholarship that took her to Boston University. Following graduation, Jones earned her commission and served as an intelligence officer in the Air Force. A veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Jones deployed to Camp Victory, Iraq, to support close air support operations. Upon separating from the Air Force, she advised on military operations in Latin America and joined the Defense Intelligence Agency as an inaugural member of U.S. Africa Command in Stuttgart, Germany. Jones went on to serve in the Executive Office of the President, leading portfolios at the intersection of economic and national security. In 2021, President Biden nominated Jones as the U.S. Senate unanimously confirmed her to serve as the 27th Undersecretary of the Air Force, the second highest civilian leading the Department of the Air Force. For her service, she earned the Department of Defense Medal for Distinguished Public Service, the department's highest civilian award. Jones serves on the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America Board of Directors, the Asian American Foundation Advisory Council, and is a life member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Jones has advanced degrees from Boston University, the University of Kansas, and the U.S. Army School of Advanced Military Studies. Please help me welcome Mayor Jones.
Good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. And as the judge just mentioned, this is a very special moment as we think about certainly the past, but also the importance of remembering and honoring, unfortunately, this very dark stain in our future. So thank you, Judge, for your remarks. I want to welcome as well the delegation from Crystal City. Crystal City is special to me. I spent some time there previously campaigning. It's a very special community. And as the judge rightly points out, it's also the home of La Raza. Right, so a place that is well known for its activism and civil rights history. I also want to thank, of course, the wonderful organizers for today. I know these things don't just come together, right, overnight with the snap of a finger. So let me thank Carissa Tom, Brand Nakashima, their co-coordinators, as well as your co-chairs, Gabriela Nakashima, Hiroshi Shimuzu, and Brian Shibayama, for your roles in organizing this event and making sure we continue to understand the very important but tragic events that happened just down the road from here. When I think of, as was mentioned, much of my time in public service has been spent in national security. And so when I think about the internment camp, I always think about a book that we had to read as part of one of the programs at the University of Kansas, and it's called The Banality of Evil. Folks familiar with that book? The Banality of Evil, what it does is tell the story of he was a German officer, and he was living in Latin America. The Israelis, essentially, after obviously World War II, had set up Israel, and now were frankly looking to arrest those folks and bring them back to Israel to stand trial. And they arrested this person. His name was Adolf Eichmann, and he was essentially a senior logistics officer as part of that. And in the course of the trial, they were accusing him of very horrific things, of which he was a piece of that. But it was clear from one of the reporters who was covering that this person was not responsible for all that he was being accused of. He was a product of the moment in time that he was in. So the banality of evil. They were ascribing him. He was the mastermind of this and this and that. And it was very clear to reporters that actually, no, he wasn't that. He was part of a generation of people, unfortunately, that were conditioned and taught that this is the way that it had to be. And so when we think about this moment in time, I think we look at the ways in which it is so important, as rightly points out, the ways in which we see some of the parallels between what happened back then, what is happening now, how people are being otherized, how things are being excused away in the name of national security, right? Those are the kinds of things that we have to make sure that people understand the connection to, because it's very clear kind of where this story ultimately leads if we just look back to history. And that's why I think it's so important that we continue events like this that speak to, why they did those things. Why I was actually very honored to visit the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles and to see some of the artifacts of those things that were, frankly, from some of the internment camps. They for some of you that have been there, you know that they actually have a spot that looks just like some of the places, unfortunately, folks were forced to live in. But the ways in which so much of that was also tied to people's economic circumstances, right? Why did they not want those folks to come back to Peru? Well, because they had now taken over their businesses and their land and their homes, and they didn't want them to come back and get their things. So it's so important when the intersections between not only, the economic justices that we need to make sure that we are protecting, but also understanding that those ultimately can be the reasons why people are ultimately forced to suffer some horrific things, and why we, at all levels, have a responsibility to to make sure that we are standing up for the most vulnerable, in all ways and in all times. I will also say, having been to Crystal City, it's important. As an elected official, one of the things I walked away from when I was there, anybody that spent time in Crystal City knows it's a proud community, but it's an impoverished community. And we also see that sometimes the ways in which the places in which some of these horrific things happen are because some of these communities themselves are so desperate for economic opportunities. I remember in 2018, actually, when some of this was happening, and I was in Crystal City and in Carrizo, and in some of these communities, there aren't any economic opportunities. And so we have to not only treat people with respect, but also make sure we've got economic opportunities so folks aren't so, frankly, desperate for these kinds of opportunities, these kinds of economic jobs that, in fact, are not living up to, at all the times, the values that we have as a country, right? Thank you for what you do, and I'm very, again, appreciative of the way in which this has even been termed, which is neighbors, not enemies, because whenever I am traveling throughout the city and talking to neighbors, not just voters, but I do in fact neighbors, it's important that we see each other, we see our future uniquely tied to the plight of our neighbors, regardless of their status, regardless of who they love, regardless of whether they've been here for 7 generations or 2 generations. It's really important that we do continue to see ourselves as neighbors, because I think that is in fact the only way we will get to the other side of this. So thank you for taking the time to be here, taking the time to do this pilgrimage. I know it sounds like many of you have done this previously several times over. So thanks for continuing to tell this story and make sure that we are reminded, frankly, of what we have done previously, unfortunately, to many communities, but frankly, the lessons we can learn from that, and especially in this moment of time as we try to make connections for those that are trying to make sense of it but cannot, but also help them see we've been here before. We've been here before, and if we don't raise our hands, if we don't speak up, we will go down a dark, dark path. So thank you. I know that wasn't exactly a rah-rah speech, but I just want to thank you. And as somebody that has worked in national security, again, uniquely understands the moment in time that we're in and how, frankly, dangerous it can be when folks are cloaking things in terms of national security and frankly, it is counterproductive. So thanks for what you do today, and I hope you have a good visit and is something that you continue to spread throughout your communities. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mayor. We really appreciate your presence here this morning, and thank you for welcoming us to your beautiful city. I just have a few more pieces of business that I'd like to share. One of them is our land acknowledgement, and I think it's very important anytime that we come to lands that were formerly the indigenous lands, that we recognize the local tribes. As Japanese Americans, we have a lot to thank our indigenous brothers and sisters for. I was recently at the Bismarck Fort Lincoln site in North Dakota, which is now the site of the United Tribes Technical College. And just earlier last month, they donated land to the Japanese American community. Imagine this, an indigenous community donating land to Japanese Americans so that we could commemorate the 1,901 persons of Japanese ancestry that were held there during the war. And these kinds of symbols of solidarity are not limited to North Dakota. We have similar stories among the Shoshone in Heart Mountain area in Wyoming. We have these kinds of allyship with the Colorado River Indian tribe in Poston, and also at Amachi with the Arapaho and the Cheyenne tribes, who are building bridges across communities. So with that being said, we recognize that we are on the unceded stolen lands of the Tonkawa and Payaya peoples of the Coahuiltecans Band, the original and indigenous stewards of Yanaguana, the land of spirit waters, and what is now known as San Antonio. The area now known as Bexar County has continued to be inhabited by indigenous peoples for over 14,000 years. Today, San Antonio is home to an estimated 58,000 indigenous peoples, or 1.4% of the city's population. members of the Coahuiltecans tribe are still fighting for representation and inclusion today. So let's keep them in our minds and hearts as we're also here on their lands. So, with that, I wanted to see who all is in the room. We're going to be spending a lot of time together over the next 2 days. And if you could humor me by raising your hand or standing if you are able when I ask the following questions. Who here is a descendant of Crystal City or another wartime incarceration camp of Japanese Americans? Quite a bit of us. And who here is a survivor? All right. Thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it. If this is your first pilgrimage to Crystal City, please raise your hand. Wow. Welcome. And if you're attending your second Crystal City pilgrimage, please raise your hand. Welcome back. If this is your third Crystal City pilgrimage, all right. Some repeat offenders. Well, thank you all for being here. And I'd also just like to acknowledge that we have guests who have traveled to join us as far away as Canada, Peru, and Japan. So please raise your hands if you've traveled from overseas to join us here today. Thank you. We appreciate it. All right. Well, we do appreciate everyone being here. And at this point, I would love to introduce our pilgrimage co-chairs who are going to share some additional remarks. Please welcome Gabi, Hiroshi, and Brian to the stage.
Well, welcome. Welcome to the Crystal City pilgrimage. I'm overwhelmed with the presence of Judge Peter Sakai and Mayor Jones and the mayor of Crystal City. That is the supreme example of our theme, neighbors, not enemies. And it's really overwhelming to have that kind of local support, that they are neighbors and certainly not enemies. And I really appreciated Mayor Jones's comments about that. This pilgrimage has been put together by Gabi Nakashima and Brian Shibayama primarily. They worked so hard and they dedicated so much time to this organizing that you'll experience it in the next 2 days. 3 days? 3 days. Yes, and we have subcommittees that are headed by tremendous people as well, and they spent many, many hours putting together the program that you'll experience. And I'd like to honor some of them because I don't know if I could remember them all. Do we have a list? No? Oh. Wow. Oh, let me check the program. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry that I hadn't been this prepared for this. The let's see, the Education Programming Committee was headed by Carissa Tom and Brad Nakashima. If you could raise your hands, we would. And the fundraising committee included Diane Yamashiro Omi and Gabriella, our other co-chair. And if Diane could raise her hand, Gabby is here. So. The Health and Safety Committee, Parker Jew and Carissa Tom again. Logistics Committee, my co-chair Brian. Shoshana Arai, raise your hand. And Victor Uno. And the Museum Committee. Yesterday we finished installing the brand new exhibit at the museum, at the My Story Museum in Crystal City, which you get to visit tomorrow. But the committee that put that together was Rob Bushler, Karen Kai, the famous attorney from the Quorum Nobis case, Kaz Naganuma, my friend for 79 years, Becky Shibayama, Brian's sister, Victor Uno, and Diane Yamashiro Omi. Raise your hands and you'll notice that these committees are populated by the same people. The PR Marketing Committee is Rob Bushler, Parker Jew, Gabriella Nakashima, and Brian Shibayama. So, the Program Booklet Committee, Kaz Naganuma, Kim Schultz, and Becky Shibayama. The Registration Committee, Shoshana Arai. Volunteer Committee, Camilla Nakashima, Gabrielle, and Brian. So these are the people that are responsible for what you will experience in the next 3 days. And just one more hand for them, and thank you.
Thank you, Hiroshi. Hello, my name is Gabriella Nakashima. I am a Yonsei and descendant of Tule Lake and Topaz. I am deeply honored to be a co-chair this year along with Hiroshi and Brian. Pilgrimage is an opportunity to learn from survivors and uplift their stories, learn from descendants, from our Crystal City friends, from movement organizers, and from each other. It is a collective experience that allows us to bear witness to our shared history. In this political moment, it feels necessary to foster community and to be in solidarity with each other. While pilgrimage can be heavy and painful, we hope that it is also joyful and healing to be together. As we become more removed from the generations of survivors of the wartime incarceration, there's a sense of urgency and obligation for the younger generations to preserve this history and to speak to our elders as much as we can. Since the last pilgrimage in 2023, my grandma passed, so my sister and I no longer have firsthand accounts to rely on for our family history. Many of us yearn for our family history, and one way I feel like I can try to fill in the gaps of my own without my grandparents is to hear from survivors. I want to express our deep gratitude and appreciation to all of the survivors who are joining us from near and from far. As Professor Michael Omi once told me, pilgrimage recognizes a shared sense of fate and solidarity over what has happened to the Nikkei community. As we are seeing parallels to our history with the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act, with state-sanctioned violence and attacks on immigrant communities, we must continue to build and stand in solidarity with each other and our neighbors and mobilize together. We hope that our time in community with one another is healing and empowering for you. Thank you for joining us.
I'm Brian Chibayama, the last of your co-chairs. I think we can forgive Hiroshi for maybe not being quite so prepared. He spent several days driving down basically most of the materials for the museum exhibit and materials for the pilgrimage along with Victor Uno. They drove it down from the Bay Area to Crystal City, and then they spent the next several days getting the museum exhibit installed. As of yesterday afternoon, it was finally completed, so you'll get a view of a fresh installation at the museum tomorrow. So, even though some of these words might be similar to what Judge Sakai shared earlier, I swear to you, I did not just write this a few minutes ago. It's important for me to contribute to the Crystal City pilgrimage to honor my father. And his family, who were unjustly taken from Peru and transported to the Crystal City family internment camp. With the current administration's attempts to whitewash our country's history, continuing to support events that preserve historical integrity, prevent the erasure of dark moments in our country's history is more imperative today. In remembrance, our voices have meaning. In community, our voices have significance. In solidarity, our voices have power.
Thanks, Brian. A few notes on our health and safety policy for our time together. Our priority is to keep everyone safe, so we thank you all for your help in doing this. Can I have Carissa Tom and Shoshana Arai stand and wave if possible? These are your medical ambassadors. So if anything health and safety-wise comes up, please see them. Masks and tests are available for everyone throughout the pilgrimage. We strongly recommend wearing masks indoors and outdoors throughout the pilgrimage, with the exception of eating and drinking. On Saturday, everyone who will be taking the buses to and from Crystal City will be required to wear a mask on the bus. Every morning, like today, everyone will be required to self-test, and your tests are in your tote bags, and receive a negative COVID test result before joining the day's activities. This is the honor system. We have medical ambassadors checking in with you all. Please do not bring your tests down here. We will check with you. And if you receive a positive COVID test result, please contact one of the pilgrimage medical ambassadors, wear a mask, isolate, and we'll be in touch with you. Thank you for helping keep everyone safe. And now we would like to have Carissa Tom, the famous Carissa Tom of our planning committee, speak and frame and orient our pilgrimage this year.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Carissa. Sorry, you have been hearing my name so much already. I'm a member of the Crystal City Pilgrimage Committee Board of Directors and the 2025 Planning Committee. I'm so honored to have been working with our planning committee to bring you this pilgrimage this year. This is my third pilgrimage to Crystal City, and just I cannot tell you how incredibly meaningful it is for me to be part of this group and to share this work with you all. I'm also a direct descendant of Crystal City Family Internment Camp internees. My great-grandfather was labeled an alien enemy, was arrested and separated from his family for months. My great-grandmother and her children, including my grandfather, were incarcerated in a WRA camp before being reunited with my great-grandfather behind barbed wires at Crystal City Family Internment Camp. Again, it's really such an honor to be with you all, to see survivors here, see so many familiar faces, and also to see so many new faces as well. As I've been preparing for this pilgrimage in these months leading up to today, I've really been reflecting on this question. What does it mean for us to participate in a pilgrimage of this nature in this moment, in this political climate in the United States and in the world today? You know, when I think about this question, when I reflect on the state of the world, it's quite bleak, right? We live in really perilous times. In the United States today, we have a federal administration that has pledged to deport 10 million immigrants in the United States without permanent legal status. And it is increasingly deputizing military force to see that pledge enacted. Our federal government is currently shut down over access to health care, and yet there's still funding for the National Guard to be deployed in cities across the nation to enforce immigration raids. Our loved ones and our communities have been terrorized by roaming ICE agents who are now even more empowered and emboldened by a recent Supreme Court ruling that allows immigration enforcement agents to stop anyone they deem to be a, quote, illegal alien, which can include racially profiling individuals based on how they look, the language they speak, where they work, or even where they happen to be. It's hauntingly familiar for those of us who are descendants of wartime internees. With these federal attacks on immigrants, in addition to a rise in white nationalism in our country, attacks against LGBTQ rights, increasing political division, even our rights to free speech, our ability to protest and raise political dissent, even teach about these issues being under attack. Many have been tempted to call these unprecedented times. But in all reality, we know that there is a precedent. Our gathering here in pilgrimage today is proof of that. Over 80 years ago, President Roosevelt invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to arrest, deport, and incarcerate 31,000 non-citizens of Japanese, German, and Italian descent during World War II, including up to 4,000 people incarcerated in Crystal City Family Internment Camp. Earlier this year, President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act for the second time in history to deport 137 Venezuelan immigrants among a group of almost 300 people to a jail in El Salvador notorious for its human rights abuses. Here in Texas, Fort Bliss opened in August of this year, just 2 months ago, becoming the largest federal immigration detention site in U.S. history, with a capacity to hold as many as 5,000 people. During World War II, Fort Bliss was used to intern people of Japanese, German, and Italian descent. And even prior to that, during the Mexican Revolution, that same base was served as a temporary holding site for thousands of Mexican refugees, many of whom were kept in military tents and exposed to toxic chemical delousing agents. Over the course of today's educational program and throughout the pilgrimage, you'll hear from survivors and scholars and activists about the human rights violations committed against immigrants of Japanese, German, and Italian descent and their families during World War II. You'll also learn from our friends in Crystal City and across Texas about their own fight against political disenfranchisement and racism. We're reminded that these instances of the past are not, in fact, an aberration, but part of ongoing systems of racism, militarism, and historical revisionism that continue to threaten our communities locally and internationally. And while this paints a very daunting picture, it's vital that we not give up our hope for a better and different world, that we learn from the mistakes of the past and fight for our collective future. those of us that have survived wartime incarceration, those of us who are descendants who have loved ones who are survivors, we know that what is legal is not always just. And while there is risk to speaking out for justice, we risk our own humanity by staying silent in the face of others' oppression. In that spirit of solidarity, the Crystal City Pilgrimage Committee reaffirms our solidarity with the Palestinian people, their struggle for liberation, their right to return to their land, and their right to self-determination. 2 years ago, during the 2023 pilgrimage, Crystal City Pilgrimage Committee joined the international call for an immediate ceasefire. In light of this week's recent ceasefire agreement, Crystal City Pilgrimage Committee is cautiously optimistic that this will be one step towards peace. However, we recognize that the ceasefire agreement does not include Palestinian self-governance, the end of the occupation, and that the United States has made no commitment to end its funding to Israel's military forces. As survivors and descendants of the Crystal City Family Internment Committee, as survivors and descendants of the Crystal City Family Internment Camp and our allies, we identify the direct links between the American government's wartime detention of alien enemies, the militarized mass detention and deportation program occurring today, and the United States' continued military funding to Israel's genocide against Palestinians, which over the last 2 years in this most recent wave of violence has resulted in over 200,000 people killed, entire cities razed to the ground, and an ongoing humanitarian crisis of starvation. Our organization remains committed to ensuring that the Crystal City Family Internment Camp remains America's last concentration camp ever. And this includes the end of the world's largest open-air prison enforced by US funding. So, back to that question of what does it mean to participate in pilgrimage of this nature in our current political atmosphere in today's world. You know, I think about it and I think that pilgrimage is really an invitation. It's an invitation to step into the past, to learn about our family's history and our collective history of, yes, shared trauma, but also of collective struggle for justice and resilience, for our rights and for reparations. Pilgrimage is an invitation to feel rage and grief, but also love and community and solidarity. It's an invitation to see ourselves in each other, to consider ourselves neighbors, even when we're being told that we're enemies. So with that in mind, I invite you all to make friends this pilgrimage. Meet some people that you otherwise wouldn't talk to. Build community. Find hope together in these dark times. And step into our rightful place in history in a long tradition of survivors, of resilient people, and of freedom seekers. Thank you. Oh, thanks. And so with that, we're going to start our educational program for the day. We are going to be starting with a plenary entitled Crystal City Family Internment Camp, The Survivor's Perspective. Thank you.